It's my feel-good breakfast show.
And just like that, you are back on your Feel Good Breakfast show. We consider this a Health Tuesday, where we're taking care of the mental and the physical, and want to make sure that whatever season in your life you are in right now, you have a hand to hold to get through it. Now, if divorce is a part of that life, it is a changing event that really takes you from one phase of your life to another. We definitely want to help you out if you are that couple right now, not just as a couple, but also as an entire family. And we've brought in the big guns to do exactly that.
Daniela Meyer is a family therapist. She is a divorce mediator. So she lives in the space, and she's a parenting coordinator. And today she's going to be taking us through some of her best ways to manage co-parenting, to navigate the new family dynamics and prioritize children's well-being during this critical phase so it doesn't have to get ugly, because it can get very ugly, as I see you nodding your head. Very warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
I know you kind of do this every day, but you must kind of have to take a deep breath every time you enter into this situation. You've made the decision to get divorced, and generally that comes with its own baggage, massive amount, and often it's about the couple, not necessarily about the children, but they are there.
They are there.
So when we have come to this very final decision, or at least we are both committed to now moving to the next phase, how does that look? How does the process kind of continue?
So I want to just be very clear before I even start that I separate situations to abusive situations and to just regular divorce.
Okay.
So everything I'm about to say now is it's not applicable for the abusive situations, and that's imperative.
Okay.
Because we obviously don't want people to be in a situation or having to give access to parents who are not fit to raise the kids.
For
so
sure.
Please,
Just take
understand
that off the
that,
table
that
straight away. Okay, I love that, yeah.
So you're getting divorced. Divorce is one of the most stressful situations there is that you are going to go through in your entire life. It is up there with divorce, these tough jobs. You get a lot of tough jobs that people have to do.
The highest rating of stress that you can get.
It's one of the
pretty much,
highest.
yeah.
I mean, it's also the same as when you do a house renovation. Like, there's just constant stress. There is never a moment where you can just relax.
Tap off.
Life, as you know, it is changing. So what do we do? I think that what I'm so excited to be here for is to tell South Africa that divorce is okay. So many people, there's such a huge stigma against divorce.
And judgment that comes with it,
and
yeah.
there is so much grief involved. There's so much stress and anxiety, as you said. Guys, it is okay. There is a reason why there's an over 50% divorce rate worldwide. That means that 50% of marriages are failing, and we need to understand why. But what my message is really is that people don't realize that they've got options, because everybody who's going through a divorce, it's obviously, well, mainly the first time they've ever had to deal with something like this.
Yeah.
Where do you go? What do you do?
Completely new territory.
And the only time we actually see divorce, if you are not actively involved with somebody who's been through it before, is in the movies, you know? So what do? People think, I'm getting divorced, I need the best divorce lawyer.
Yeah, let's legal up. Let's legal up.
Let's get a divorce lawyer, because then I will win. Guys, this is not about winning or losing. We're both already losers in this situation.
Sure.
So let's see what our options are. And what I want to just say is that you don't need to lawyer up. You don't need to go the legal route. You can remain in control of the entire process and situation by putting the ego aside for a moment and saying, you know what, let's rather contact a divorce mediator where we can try and amicably understand and discuss the way forward.
And stay on the same team.
Stay on the same team,
Ooh, that's
especially if you have
tough.
kids. So what the slogan is mediate before you litigate. Always the first prize.
I love that.
Well, you are a divorce mediator.
I am.
I'm so curious as to what exactly that is, and what is that process that you walk through with the couple that are separating ways?
So divorce mediation, I mean, mediation is really a discussion. As a divorce mediator, I've got obviously a code of ethics that I'm bound to, but one of the most important things, and I say this so that people who are going through the process know what to look out for. So a divorce mediator is supposed to be a neutral, unbiased third party who's there to really guide the conversation and steer it to the right direction. We have either legal mediators or psychologically based mediators. It's important to understand that a mediator is not supposed to be giving legal or psychological advice in the situation. So while I, as a psychological mediator, may be able to understand family dynamics, child development, all of that, or a legal mediator might be able to understand more of the law and the assets and the maintenance. We are not meant to advise on that basis. What my job is to say, guys, at one point you loved each other. You know, are you good parents to your children? Okay, well, let's keep that in the forefront and the focus, and let's have a discussion where both of you can actually, and the kids most importantly, can leave here as winners. And you
have a
both
voice,
agree,
yeah.
you all have a voice. Instead of going to court, where now all of a sudden social workers are involved who make the decisions for you, keep the control. We can do this. It's not that difficult.
I love that. In your experience and coming from the angle that you do very clearly, you would see firsthand the knock-on effect, and that obviously is our first priority, is the children, is the family around that divorced couple. What sort of effect does a divorce generally have on that little ecosystem?
So it is absolutely disastrous, because not only are you going through the struggle, I mean, unfortunately, everybody's had a bad breakup in their life. We know how that feels. Now what we're doing is we're saying, hey, here's that bad breakup again, but guess what? You have to talk to your ex now every single day of your life, you know? How does that make us as adults feel? Now imagine the children, you know? I mean, this conversation should be 5 hours. I wish it was 5 hours. But condensed, our children are now put in a position subconsciously and sometimes very actively by their parents to say, well, who do you actually identify as, mom or dad? Who do you prefer, mom or dad? It just tilts children completely off their axis, and it's our responsibility as their parents to be able to maintain a feeling of teamwork, of support, of love, of unconditional acceptance. And what makes it so difficult for the kids is that they're so often used as pawns, and it is so difficult. But one thing is that a lot of people don't realize is that the High Court is actually the supreme guardian of all of our children. So we are their parents, we make their day-to-day decisions, but the court ultimately says all children's needs and children's importance are of paramount importance.
They come first.
Every single decision we make in the process must be for the best interests of the children. And that is why I say mediation is so important, because as their parents, we want to have that say, and we want to be able to make the decisions based on the fact that we know them better than anyone.
Completely,
you know?
yeah. I absolutely love the fact that there is a massive step before you take that massive step of legal action, because that's when it does become very beyond emotionally charged. Actually, the emotion can get sucked out of it completely, and that's even more terrifying when it comes to children. You can let us know what your thoughts are on the situation by heading on over to our social media pages. At Expresso Show is the handle to use, and let us know, or maybe leave us a voice note via WhatsApp 063-408-8863 how you feel. Maybe you're going through something like this right now. Maybe you've got some advice for couples and families that are. We'll continue the conversation in just a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your feel-good show that might not be feeling so feel-good right now. Why? Because we're going through a divorce. One of the ugliest, most scary things I think anyone can broach. And we are navigating that co-parenting element. Daniela Mayer is a family therapist and, most importantly, a divorce mediator who is there to help us. She is a parenting coordinator, and she joins us to guide us through a very difficult topic. And, of course, we put it through to you guys to weigh in on the social media platforms, and we've got a couple of responses.
Yeah, we do have a couple of responses to get through. We've got Marissa coming up first saying, marriage is not easy. It requires so much forgiveness. Oh, that's a good one. Understanding as well as patience, which is impossible to do without God. With God, all things are possible. God knows exactly what we need when we ask him. It's nice to have a guiding principle sometimes to get you through a difficult time.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, I'm not going to say that everybody now has to prescribe to the idea of God. We're going to just keep it general for everybody. But you definitely, and I mean, I think one of the most valuable things when you're going through divorce is your support structure. You know, it is a very, in all my years of practice, one of the main themes that I get is how lonely the process is. Because no two divorces are the same.
Because no people are the same.
No people, no circumstances. So many people who are getting divorced come from families who've never been through it.
Sure.
So to have a divorce support structure around you is so vital. And if you don't have that amongst your friends groups or families, look outward. Church groups, God, prayer,
Community, yeah.
community. I mean, I've started a Facebook support group, the
that's
divorce
lovely.
support, the co-parenting confessional, so that people can feel like they've got a place. It is so important.
Normalize it.
Normalize,
Yeah.
Get rid of the
normalize it, because
shame.
divorce can be beautiful, and I don't think I'm popular with this opinion, but it can be, because what can be worse than staying in a toxic situation?
For
What can be
sure.
worse than raising our children in toxicity?
Wow.
Well, I mean, I once saw an amazing documentary that spanned literally 20 years in the making, where they were able to track children from birth up until their young adult years. The most deeply affected children, when it came to that psychological component, those that stayed in a marriage for the sake of the children. So you're not doing them any favors by staying in that toxic place.
Absolutely.
But maybe getting into the practical elements is kind of like a hack. But we've got another comment coming through right now. Let's
Let's
delve
have a look
into
at
that.
this. Okay, this one comes from Basitsana. It says, simple, alternative weekends, and don't ever think that you know better than the other parent. Communication is key, and if you're unable to do something, do speak up, because keeping quiet for the sake of, quote, peace can actually just lead to frustration at the end of the day.
So I am very grateful for this comment, because this brings us to probably the most important part of co-parenting, and that is what is going to happen to the kids.
Yeah.
So there's a few things that I want to briefly mention, and the one is the idea of care and contact, or as a lot of people know it, custody.
Custody, okay.
And then maintenance, which is child support. Now, it is vital for everybody to realize that both parents remain co-guardians, co-holders of rights and responsibility. A right is how much access you have to your child, what say you have over your child, your rights as a parent. Your responsibility to your child is their upkeep in various different aspects. So not only financially, but religious, and keeping them in touch with their family. You know, you have got rights, you have got responsibilities. And the thing that most people blur the line over, and this is where the disaster strikes, because then the kids are used as pawns, is I'm going to use mom as the primary caregiver in this and say, you know what, Dad, you haven't paid enough money, therefore you may not see your child.
Yeah.
Now that does not work. They are two separate courts. We've got the children's court that deals with care and contact, and we have the maintenance court that deals with money. Money is one of the most acrimony causing things ever.
Understandably, yeah.
Completely. But we can have a perfectly lovely situation where everybody's working as a team, and then money comes in, and oh my gosh, you are such an abusive parent, you can't be alone with my child. Like, you have no idea what can go down.
Well, if the weapons are on the table, people are going to reach for them in desperation
Absolutely.
or anger.
But this is why it is so important that in the beginning we've mediated. Why? We have now got an exit strategy. We've said, you know what, my first question I ever ask a new couple is he a good dad? Is she a good mom? And once they've said yes, they're the best, because we're still like calm and trying to like work this out, I document that. So that in 5 months, 6 months time, where it's like, oh, he's
can go back to
abusive,
that
I'm like,
baseline,
excuse
yeah.
me, why is he now suddenly abusive?
Wow.
So
What has changed?
What has
Yeah.
changed? Exactly. Oh, he didn't give you the 75 rand. Okay, well,
What does a healthy mindset look like going into this, and your experience with the families that are getting this right? And I'm going to again reiterate that obviously with Sia and Rachel's divorce being so publicized at the moment, there's so much pressure on them to tick all of those boxes, and they've handled this beautifully, I must say. As individuals, they've done incredibly well, and I just love them both for what they've had to go through, because they've had to share this experience with everyone. So we're sending them lots of love and positive energy. But clearly they did the work before making this announcement, because they knew the pressure they would face. In your space, what does that work look like? Not what I'm wanting my partner to do, but what I can do to be better at this process, because ultimately we're going to have to, it's going to have to start with self-work.
completely. I mean, there is so much self-work that needs to happen, because I think that when you're getting divorced, you're automatically on the back foot. And it is so important to realize that this decision has been made jointly, or unfortunately, if it's not joint, you don't really have much of a choice. So you know what, my biggest thing is always try your best to understand the ego and the role that the ego plays. Try not to play the victim. The victims here, and I don't like that word, are the children. They didn't have a choice, you know, potentially.
Yeah.
They didn't have a choice, you know. So the point is know your worth. Understand that even if you didn't want the divorce, why would you want to stay in a marriage where your partner doesn't want to be in it?
Yeah.
You know,
What is that teaching your children about
exactly?
marriage and love and connection?
I love the idea of teaching our children that if we are ever in a situation where we feel like we've made a bad choice, that there is a way out of it. We don't have to stay prisoners of that forever, you know. So I love that aspect. But Rachel and Sia, I mean, like, I in my profession am so grateful to them. Because you're quite right, they've handled it like absolute, like
class,
you
yeah.
can't imagine how difficult it is and what they might be going through.
Absolutely.
But what they've done is they've said, you know what, guys, we are South Africa's golden couple. They know that everybody looks up to them.
Yeah.
And for them to say, you know what, we're all human, it's okay, is such a blessing, because we might have these couples that are sitting in the situation of a bad marriage because they're too scared or they don't want to fail. And that's a big thing that I deal with, is the failure and the grief and all of that kind of stuff.
And you're going to have to accept, if more than 50%, more than half of us are going down this route, it doesn't make them different, it makes them normal. It makes them just like the rest of us.
But I just want to say one more thing, is that there's also a statistic, so it's not all doom and gloom. There is a statistic that says that 80% of divorced people remarry within 5 years.
Wow.
And what that is teaching us is that even though we've decided now that the idea of divorce is something that we're really bad at, we have got an infinite capacity for love, you know?
I love that, yeah.
And we forget the hardships, you know? So if we can carry ourselves through the process with the class that we've seen from Rachel and Sia and many others, and try and protect our children and make the right decisions and realize that what a child needs is the love and support from both of their parents. They should never have to choose a parent over the other parent, because they are 50% mom, 50% dad, and they have a right to both of them. So if we can be there for our children and support them, then maybe the next generation will be one of more acceptance and more understanding in this whole thing.
Certainly more emotionally evolved.
Completely.
And if we can hand that on to our kids, if nothing else, we are doing them a massive favor.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for putting yourself in these very uncomfortable spaces to help the amount of people that you have. It's amazing work that you do, and I'm starting to see it in a different light. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
That was an incredible conversation.
Sure.
I'm a bit
I
choked
feel
up, a bit
like she was
emotional.
mediating our divorce. I'm
Literally,
like, I'm not ready, Carl. I'm not ready.
I don't want
Carl.
to separate ways.
You're a great parent.
I'm glad there's light at the end of the tunnel, but honestly, Daniela, thank you for that.
Thank
and also,
you.
there's no shame in this, okay? That is why we have these
Yeah.
conversations week to week on Your Health Tuesdays, and hopefully you'll be back next time, same place, to also unpack a wonderful conversation. For now, though, let's head over to Joburg to find out what is still to come on Your Feel Good Breakfast Show.